Everyone has to live somewhere, and everyone has to invest their money someplace. So what happens when where you live meets up with where your money is invested? Hello, real estate. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Big Money Real Estate. I'm Ilyce Glink. Here's today's daily update. New research out of the University of Southern California's Lusk Center for Real Estate shows household formation levels have recovered to a pre-recession rate at about 1 million new households a year. And that's about where we were before the recession started. Today we have Gary Painter. He's Director of Research at the Lusk Center and co-author of the study, and he's here to tell us more about this trend. Gary, welcome to Big Money Real Estate.
Thank you. I'm happy to be on with you today.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your research and how you conducted it and what you found.
Well, one of the big issues that policy professionals, academics, et cetera, have been looking at since the recession is just this. There was this huge reduction in the number of especially young adults that were entering the housing market. And without having new people enter the housing market, you're going to have reduced housing demand generally. And so this is a really important fact for practitioners and so forth. And so I've been studying this since the recession hit with a variety of approaches. But those approaches before this paper was written, were mainly looking at kind of what factors would lead young adults to form households. What it didn't do is look at how the economic cycle affected the overall rate of household formation. And so in this paper, what I tried to do is to figure out if you had a big shock like the one we had in terms of a huge spike in unemployment rates, how long would it actually take for household formation to recover without other shocks in the economy? And so that was the purpose of this paper, was to kind of get a sense of how long do we have to wait for household formation, new household formation, to recover? So
the answer seems to be about 8 years. It's now 2015. We saw things go into the toilet 2008, actually maybe even a little bit before that. Was that the conclusion of your paper?
So the conclusion of the paper was that it takes about kind of 12 quarters to return back to normal rates, but then there's going to be a longer deficit. The deficit in the household formation that didn't happen during those quarters takes a long time to make up. And so the kind of shock that we experienced was bigger than the one that I was able to model, because I was able to look at kind of the average effect over the last 7 recessions, and clearly the one that we were in was named the Great Recession for a reason. Right. And so what the model basically said is that, after 3 years, household formation should start to be normal again, but it's going to take a while before that deficit in household formation was made up. And so we're right now at the cusp. If you look at the data, 2014 was a really strong year for household formation. We added about 2 million households. 2015 is starting off well. And so I think what we're going to see is that by the end of 2015, we probably have recovered most of that deficit in household formation. But you never know what might happen in terms of new, either positive or negative economic shocks to the economy. So those always have to be taken into account.
So what I love about this is this idea that maybe 2 million new households were formed. You feel like we're coming up where that deficit may be erased. And yet if you look at the number of buyers of either new construction or existing homes, we're nowhere near back to where we were. I mean, I guess existing homes have now reached they're about 4.6 million on an annualized basis. But new construction purchases are still about 50% of what they were. So people are clearly renting, right?
Yeah, so my other work on household formation shows that, that is where you're going to see the newest household formation is in the rental market. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now, is that people who are establishing independence are moving in much larger numbers to the rental market than they are in the owner-occupied market. But that's just kind of the normal way that we recover out of recessions. You see the flow of people into the rental market first. Rents accelerate at a faster rate than house prices. At a certain point, it starts to make a lot of sense for individuals and families to look at buying as opposed to renting. And so my suspicion is that in the next year or two, you'll start to see that turn, where you'll see new home construction starting to pick up as those people who are in the rental market are facing higher and higher rents. They're going to be looking to own in the near future.
So a couple of things that occurred to me in watching this market for 20 plus years. it's true that people will start to look, but right now we've got mortgage interest rates at an all-time, basically at all-time level lows, right? And you've got home prices that have actually zoomed up in most of the major marketplaces, making the affordability factor not quite where you would want to see it. At the same time, while we've seen the unemployment rate go down, a lot of those people are employed at jobs that pay less than they did before. They're part-time instead of full-time work. They're 1099s who don't have benefits. And so when I think about this, and clearly, you know, I'm not the PhD like you are, but when I think about it, I worry that the affordability is actually not going to be able to be attainable for the vast numbers of people, and they're going to get trapped into a cycle of renting for far longer than they might otherwise be.
Well, the way that housing markets work, there's always going to be a point where you know, the rent price ratio tips. And what I mean is that the price of rents versus the price of homes tips, so that, you know, home ownership becomes a better option for people. What you're pointing out is that, you know, the fact that people are having jobs again, they may not be the kinds of jobs they had before, but as the market strengthens, you're going to see just the fundamental drivers of housing demand increase housing demand, and then that'll show up in really both the rental and the home price market. So I think home, you know, builders have the right to be cautious right now, because they haven't seen the rate of new household demand in the owner-occupied sector yet. And I don't think we'll necessarily see it for the next year or so. But, you know, I think going forward into the future, we would expect it to start to pick up. And so, of course, housing starts have to start, you know, before that wave of new home owner-occupied demand. And so it's just a real question of when should developers start building, and how long should they wait?
Who knew it would all come back to the chicken and the egg? Or is it the chicken crossing the road? I don't know.
I don't know which the right analogy in this case, but one of the things that we do know is that, you know, the housing market is going to be driven by fundamentals in the near term, and that means that, you know, as incomes go up, housing demand is going to increase. As the rents versus the home prices kind of start tilting one direction or the other, that's going to predict which direction, you know, young adults who are forming new households, who are, you know, starting families, et cetera, which direction that they're going to go. And that's a departure, obviously, from the world of 2004 to 2006, when, you know, the fundamentals of the housing market weren't driving prices.
Right, and it'll be interesting for real estate investors to watch this closely. Gary Painter is the Director of Research at the Lusk Center, co-author of this study. Hey, Gary, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you to you for watching this episode of Big Money Real Estate. Be sure to share this video. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. And until next time, I'm Ilyce Glink.